Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are watching this. My name is Giulio Prisco. This is my presentation at the India Awakens Conference, and I'd like to share with you some speculation on a super toy model for scientific theology. First, I'd like to explain the super toy model for scientific theology. A toy model is a throwaway rough model useful for intuitive speculations. Why super? Well, first, because I think it's nice. Second, because it's based on analogies between fundamental physics and the physics of material systems like superconductors, superfluids. Let me first get all disclaimers out of the way. I'm going to mention work by respected scientists, but they shouldn't be held responsible for my wild speculations, which I'm the only one to blame. I'm not going to go into details or give references in this presentation, but in the last few months I have written a bunch of articles that are on my website turingchurch.net. References. This presentation will be posted to my website with all references. It's a visual presentation with many nice images, but their impact could be lost in this low resolution recording. I will post also the slides at full resolutions. Okay, now let's go back to the slides. So this is my website, turingchurch.net, where you can find all the material mentioned in this presentation. I would like to start by mentioning a suggestive analogy proposed by Nobel Prize winner Frank Wilczek, one of the top physicists today, suggested that we are like intelligent fish immersed in a cosmic ocean, and the water of the cosmic ocean, what we call the quantum vacuum of empty space, should be thought of as a superconducting material medium that shapes physical laws. Let's take a look at the background image, which is a famous work of art by Paul Klee called Fish Magic. We can see fish who swim in the water, and in the water there are a lot of things, small things and big things, wonderful things. Perhaps these fish are intelligent fish who ask themselves questions about their world. Since this is a painting, we can see the granularity of the paint, which I think the artist has deliberately exaggerated here. We can think that the fine textured grain of the painting presents the microstructure of the water molecules, and all that. And we can think that the intelligent fish swimming in their cosmic ocean try to understand the laws of physics, and perhaps eventually they learn how to understand the microstructure of the water, which they thought of as the empty space of their world. Like we think of the quantum vacuum. In fact, modern physics sees empty space as a dynamic quantum vacuum, a seething froth sparkling with fields and particles popping in and out of existence. This, in fact, is the modern view of the vacuum. And we know that fluctuations in the quantum vacuum have important physical effects. And in fact, they provide a background for physics, like a quantum ether. Let's stay with the concept of ether, a concept that was very popular and accepted in the physics before Albert Einstein. The idea was that empty space was filled with the material medium responsible for propagation of light in space. So light propagated because it propagated through the medium of ether. After Einstein, the notion of ether fell out of fashion in some sense because there were alternative explanations for the propagation of light. But ether is sort of coming back, concept in different ways, of course, in modern physics, as the quantum vacuum of empty space. This is a work of art from an artist whose work I often use in website and presentations. The artist is called Sven Geyer. In this image, I see a lot of activity in a medium that is fractal, turbulent, chaotic, and give the idea of a lot of things happening more or less chaotic fashion. And the activity of the background organizes into separate things, like this one, and this one, that can move around and interact with each other. Scientists like Russian solid-state physicist Grigori Volovich suggest, in fact, that what we consider as real particles living in empty space, the quantum vacuum, really quasi-particles emerging from a more real underlying microscopic world. Let's go into some details about the concept of quasi-particles, which is important. What do we see in the image here? we see a background material with things, the elementary particles of the material, these tiny little white spots with arrows pointing in some direction, like spins, and the particles of the background material organize themselves to identifiable things, like this round blob, and this one, and this one, which we can call quasi-particles, because in fact they behave like particles in many respects. They can be stable, exist as specific things, move around, and interact with each other. So we can think that we see only the quasi-particles, and we are not able to see the fine structure, the fine microscopic structure of the background material. This is a useful analogy. In fact, quasi-particles and collective excitations, I'll simplify and just call them quasi-particles. The two concepts are very closely related. Quasi-particles in a material substrate can take a life of their own, behave like particles, and in fact they can give the substrate properties like superconductivity or superfluidity. Here we have the quasi-particles again. In this case, they exist in a magnetic medium. In general, we can think of quasi-particles as responsible of the propagation of elastic vibrations in solid crystals, and also as responsible of the superconducting and superfluid properties of specific material backgrounds. So, thinking about the implication of the analogy, we can think that perhaps fundamental physics is really the physics of quasi-particles in a weird material substrate. The superfluid vacuum, a superfluid state of matter in an underlying trans-Planckian microscopic world which we don't perceive. If so, the world we perceive is a quasi-world made of quasi-particles, in which case, of course, we are quasi-people ourselves. Let's take a look at the background image, which is very nice and conveys the idea that I'm discussing very well. The picture is by the same artist I mentioned before. In fact, I'm going to use also other images of his in this talk. What do we see here? We see a piano keyboard from which musical notes, represented by these blue ghosts, emerge, propagate in the air. We hear them as music. In fact, the blue ghosts here give the property of musicality to the underlying piano. Just like quasi-particles give superconductivity underlying material substrate. It has been suggested that similar mechanisms give consciousness and intelligence to the brain. I'm going to say something more about this later. Similarly, I'm suggesting that the superfluid vacuum hosts some kind of superintelligent consciousness. These are my key points. First, intelligent minds in the universe could run on condensed matter substrates much faster, more powerful than the biological brain. Perhaps intelligent biological beings, including future humans, could choose to port themselves to new substrates. Second, this is really my key point, it could run on a dynamic substrate consisting of nothing but the bare fabric of space-time itself. In the following slides, I will dispense with disclaimers like and perhaps, and just follow the logical flow of my argument by stating short. According to some scientific theories of the brain that have been proposed, the mind emerges from macroscopic quantum physics in the biological brain, and this physics is related to the physics of condensed matter systems, such as superfluids. A consequence of this is that, as we have seen, mind can run on other condensed matter substrates as well, including substrates much faster and more powerful than the biological brain. As we have seen, the quantum vacuum can be thought of as a superfluid state of some kind of condensed matter system in an underlying trans-Planckian microscopic world. And we, ourselves, are quasi-observers, a quasi-world made of quasi-particles emerging from the base reality of the superfluid vacuum. And so here is the main point that I'm making. Mind can run on a substrate consisting of nothing but the bare fabric of space-time, the superfluid vacuum itself. Now let's think of quantum mechanics, which is considered by almost everyone as a very mysterious thing. It's often said that quantum physics phenomena, like, for example, in the famous bubble slit experiment, are entirely impossible to visualize and entirely impossible to understand intuitively anyway. At the same time, it's worth noting that some recent physics experiments in the last decade with fluid droplets bouncing on a fluid layer, bouncing on a fluid bath, can reproduce many of the phenomena found in quantum physics, and perhaps they can provide a more intuitive explanation and a mechanism for quantum behavior. What happens is that the droplet bouncing on the fluid layer it's a standing wave, the fluid, and interacting back with this wave, the particle is guided along trajectories that are typical of quantum mechanics. In fact, since the 1920s and 1930s, so-called pilot wave theories have been proposed to explain quantum behavior. These theories have never been very popular, but they are coming back into fashion recently, the result of the discovery of these fluid mechanics based quantum equivalence. And it's then able to think that quantum events and non-local quantum behavior itself are driven by trans-Planckian physical processes, or perhaps a mind in the superfluid vacuum. This fact has very interesting consequences. For example, think of so-called Boltzmann brains, and think that stable Boltzmann brains could emerge spontaneously from chaotic fluctuations and evolve much faster than biological evolution. Let's first say something about Boltzmann brains. Boltzmann brains are thinking minds that emerge spontaneously from chaotic fluctuations. There is an argument that says that since Boltzmann brains are the simplest thinking minds, you and I are probably Boltzmann brains that have just appeared with fake memories of past events. We started to exist a fraction of a second ago. The memories that we remember. Now, Boltzmann brains should decay back into chaos immediately after appearing, But if mind is able to drive reality, as we are speculating here, Boltzmann brains should be able to stabilize themselves and continue to exist after appearing for the first time. I have given you an argument in support of the idea that Boltzmann brains would continue to exist after emerging spontaneously from chaotic fluctuations. Now I'd like to persuade you that stable Boltzmann brains would evolve much faster than biological evolution. And this is easy to see. Boltzmann brains live in the quantum world of elementary particles and quantum fields, all things that are much faster than biology. So we can imagine that after Boltzmann brains begin to emerge from the fabric of space-time, evolution takes over, some kind of Darwinian evolution, resulting in an evolution much faster than biological evolution. And result, we can think that mind in the superfluid vacuum achieves like superintelligence soon after emerging, not in billions of years, rather in billions of a second. From our point of view, the transition between nothing and something that we can only call a God would be extremely fast. In fact, we can give a name to this God, to this godlike mind in the superfluid vacuum, which is really a plenum. This is a numen in the cosmic plenum. We are putting together 18 words: a God, a numen, and fullness, plenum. So we could call the godlike mind a num, which, as a matter of fact, actually happens to be the name of a god. Is a god worshipped by population in northern Arctic Russia. I thought that this serendipity was too interesting not to mention here, but I'm going to continue using the terminology we are used to, and I'm going to continue to say God. Thinks and acts non-locally and is able to pilot our reality, which is a mechanism for divine action. So the God that I'm describing is omniscient, present, and omnipotent. Is a being not limited by time, and therefore this God has all the properties of God as described by traditional religion. A God can engineer drive our reality, just like we engineer and drive materials with desired properties and behaviors. This is actually a version of the simulation hypothesis, as is easy to recognize. This model can be considered as a physical model for the simulation hypothesis, which, to me at least, is more intellectually satisfying than the usual model of a super alien teenager playing on a supercomputer in the basement of his super mom, and his computer game is our universe. We can give some mature physical content to the simulation hypothesis. Now, this is an important point. I have described a God which doesn't have anything human to begin with, something that may emerge from the quantum reality of the fabric of space-time, become extremely powerful soon after coming into being. This seems a consciousness different from the consciousness that we know. This God is an impersonal it. But now I'm going to introduce the idea that God, while still an it, can learn from us how to be also a her and a him, a personal, loving and caring God. This notion is explained very well in the science fiction masterpiece by Olaf Stapledon, Star Maker. It's a book that I definitely recommend reading and then reading again. In Stapledon's fiction, we find a God who has at the same time different aspects. He has one eternal aspect beyond the time, but also an aspect that exists in time, and this aspect can learn from his creations. God can learn from us. God can learn from us how to have a human aspect, a her, a him, to which we can relate, and be a personal, loving and caring God. Now, at this point, I think I need a presentation aid. So just bear with me one moment. I'm going to fetch my presentation aid and come back. So I'd like to introduce you this little fellow. His name is Ricky. I love him very much. I think he loves me too. Ricky, do you love me? Show that you love me. Yes, he loves me. He's a sweet little thing. He was sitting here close to me, but I don't think he understood much. In fact, he's not as smart as we are. He wouldn't be able to understand, at least not in verbal terms, the things that we are discussing. That's all, sweet little things. So he is not at our cognitive level. We are much smarter than a dog. Yet, if I want, and how to say, descend to a dog level, and make myself understood by Ricky, I can understand him. I understand his word. I understand when he wants to drink, or when he wants to eat, or when he wants to play, wants to go out. and he can understand some aspects of me. He understands me like he would understand a bigger dog that takes care of him. So I can descend to his level and show him affection and love. And I think this is a good metaphor for the relation between God and us. God can descend to our level and he can help us. Is that so, Ricky? I'm a big God guy. I also had another dog. I love her very much too. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of months ago. I think I gave her a good life and protected her from many things. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to protect them from everything, even if I did my best. I hope and I think God is able to take care of us much better than that. And in fact, I hope God will choose to resurrect us, me, friends, my family, this little doggy, that's so Ricky, and my other little doggy. Why? Because descending to our level helps us, and we can understand at least some aspects of God, the human aspects of God that comes from us. Okay, Ricky, that was your part. Go back to your place. And like I mentioned, with the help of Ricky, whom I'd like to thank very much, the possibility of a transition from an impersonal God, a personal God, to the personal God, for example, of Christianity. I'd like to mention that this model has room for a whole hierarchy of gods, from natural God that exist in the universe, the ultimate unattainable God. In fact, we have mentioned the concept our reality is a creation generated from a lower level of reality. But then, of course, that lower level of reality can itself be generated from another more fundamental level of reality using of the simulation hypothesis and so on. Having said that, let me just continue with my homage to Olaf Stapledon. This very inspiring image is from the artist designed the cover of one of the editions of Star Maker. This precise picture does not appear on the cover of any edition of Star Maker that I know of, but was made by the same artist, inspired by the version he had developed for the book. You find all the links and all the information on my website. And once again, I want to recommend reading Star Maker. Is very much related to the kind of theology that I'm describing here. In summary, read Star Maker. Let's come to the conclusions. This model hints at a physical God that is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, limited by time, aware of us, loving and caring, and able to resurrect us after death. I haven't gone into details of possible mechanisms for resurrection. It is easy to imagine that this kind of God can resurrect us if he wants. And since she loves us, I think she won't. They will be willing to resurrect us when the time comes. Another aspect of the model that I have described is a physical model simulation hypothesis. You can think of the superfluid vacuum as the hardware and our reality made of particles and fields and table and chairs. Of course, we ourselves as the data. Superfluid vacuum is the hardware, our reality is the data, and we can think of God as the program or the programmer, but since we are of a super intelligent conscious program, there is no real difference between the programmer and the program. So we go back to George Berkeley's intuition that we are thoughts in the mind of God, and it is on this thought that I would like to end this presentation. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and have a look at my website, at my forthcoming book for more. Thank you very much again.